Some things have to fall apart, maybe even be destroyed, or permanently removed before anything new can take root. This morning, it's just me, a black cup of coffee, and a thought I can't seem to shake. Sometimes what we call catastrophe is really just a clearing. This episode isn't about advice, it's not about answers, it's about dinosaurs and wildfires and the beauty in what's been cleared. My name is Ron Eastman, 12-year Army veteran, 2 decades as a bodyguard to some of the most influential people in the world. And between the two, I observed a lot. But more than that, I learned. And given that we've never met, and this might be the first time you've ever heard my voice, there's something you should know. I think a lot. I dissect everything, especially thoughts. I try to make sense of moments most people let pass. And often, the little things that happen in my life carry big meaning. This episode, this first pour, is one of those exact moments. This podcast, this is where I finally get to share, to speak it out loud. This is I drink my coffee black and my whiskey neat, because in those quiet moments, between each sip, is where my thoughts come alive. This podcast topic all started in the garden. My daughter and I were out back, nothing dramatic, just another morning in the dirt. She had her little gloves on, always too big, but she insists on wearing them anyways. I was breaking ground, pulling roots, trying to make room for something we hadn't even planted yet. And then she looked up and asked, so simply, so honestly, "Dad, earthworms help the dirt, right? So what were dinosaurs for? Why were they here? Were they ever in our backyard?" She's 5, almost 6, and curious about everything, just like me. But that question hit me in the ribs like a shovel to the chest, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I suddenly felt the weight of it. I was tearing into the soil, making space for something unseen, and somehow her question made that moment feel sacred. What did they give? What did they carry? What did they leave behind? "You know," I said, brushing dirt off my hands, "dinosaurs did a lot, more than most people realize. They were a huge part of Earth's story. Maybe just a chapter, but a turning point all the same. And even though they didn't plant it, they helped shape the world. They cleared forests when they moved, knocking down trees with every step, creating openings for sunlight and new plant growth. They spread seeds when they ate. They shaped the land just by being here. And when they were gone, what they left behind was space. Room for mammals, room for change, room for us. They didn't plant anything on purpose like we're doing now, but they made space for things to flourish. And the first thing I thought when I said that was, maybe that's what I'm doing now for her, making space, without even knowing it." She was already chasing a worm again, but I stood there with that question echoing inside me. She saw monsters. I saw gardeners. She saw ancient bones. I saw their gift. She was asking about history, but somehow I heard a whisper about myself. She's going to need soil I never stood in. She'll plant things I will never see bloom. And as I stood there with her, talking about roots and extinction and space, I started thinking about the other ways we clear ground. Not just in gardens, but in life. The harder ways. The ones that don't look like gardening at all. Like fire. I think about all the wildfires we see on the news. The kind that take homes, lives, whole landscapes. And it's devastating. But it got me thinking, not just about the fire we see, but the kind that move within us. The ones we don't post about. The ones that don't make smoke, but still leave us scorched. We all have them. Fires we walked into, fires that found us, fires we never speak about because they hurt and we're afraid to reignite them. Some ignite the moment you walk away from something you built for years, a job, a role, a relationship, a life. Others awaken quietly, with a diagnosis, with broken silence from someone you trusted, with the moment you realize you've been living someone else's story. Sometimes the fire is grief. Sometimes it's relief. And that's what makes it complicated. These eternal wildfires don't always look violent, but they change us. They burn the surface, so something inside us can die and healthier roots can finally breathe. And maybe that's the part we forget. The fire doesn't just destroy, it clears what's no longer needed. It makes space for something stronger, something more aligned, more alive. Just like in the garden, I don't pull weeds to punish the soil. I do it so something new can grow, so the good roots don't have to fight so hard. Sometimes we're holding on to things that can't nourish us: dead branches, old beliefs, worn out roles we never chose in the first place. And when the fire comes, it feels like a loss. But maybe it's just clearing the way. If you feel burned right now, if something scorched you down to your roots, don't rush to cover it up. Don't call it a failure. Let it breathe. Because what survives that fire is what was meant to grow. That's why I'm working the soil now. Not just for me, but for her, my daughter, my children. I know I can't give her a perfect story or a pain-free life, but I can give her the soil that's been cleared, a garden that isn't tangled in the weeds I refuse to face, a place where my unspoken grief isn't buried beneath the roots of what she's trying to grow. And the only way to protect her from that is to let the fire do its work in me first, to burn what I've outgrown, to clear what no longer serves, to make space so she doesn't have to carry what I was too afraid to let go of. I didn't always move like this. I wasn't always in the dirt. Before this season of stillness, there was a different kind of movement. I was always moving, always grinding, always chasing the next contract, the next flight, the next win. I thought that's what being a man meant: providing, protecting, performing. But presence, stillness, being rooted enough to feel something, that came later. It came with pain. It came with loss. And it brought me here to the dirt, to the place where things actually grow. Let me tell you a story. A few years back, I was flying high. My security company was booming. Clients around the world. I was building something big. And then one morning, on assignment overseas, I woke up and something was wrong. My body was in excruciating pain. Joints, bones, spine. My ribs felt like they were breaking from inside. I thought maybe I'd been poisoned, but I had a job to do, someone to protect. So I medicated. I pushed through. I pretended. Every step, every turn, every breath hurt. I could barely think straight through the pain. But all I focused on was the mission, the job in front of me. And I ignored the fire alarm going off inside my own body. Assignment first, me second. When I got home, I saw a doctor right away. That was 3 years ago. The pain never left, just got worse. New symptoms, new questions, no name for it. And then I lost everything I'd built: the momentum, the business, the identity I'd wrapped around success. But here's what else happened. The fire came, and it burned away what I thought mattered. And for the first time since I was 18, I was home. For real this time. Not just for a couple days between deployments, not prepping for another flight, not watching someone else's back. I was home, with my kids, in the silence, learning how to be present, learning how to be a father, a husband, and maybe for the first time, just learning how to be me. These days, I move slower. I think more. I listen more to the ground, to my breath, to what's still unspoken. Not to chase peace, but because the ground called me, and it's there, in the stillness, that my thoughts begin to bloom. Just like the seeds my daughter and I plan to plant in our garden, before anything can grow, you have to clear. Break the soil, pull the weeds, make space. And it's violent, in its own quiet way. But not all destruction looks like chaos. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like standing in the dirt, coffee in hand, and remembering a question from a 5-year-old. This morning, my thoughts are on dinosaurs. Tomorrow, who knows? But today I think maybe they weren't just beasts. Maybe they were tillers, clearing land with every step, making way without knowing it. And maybe I'm not being broken into little pieces. I'm being repotted, readied for something bigger, a new season. Because it's not just me. We all move through seasons like this, shifting, stretching, shedding. And depending on the moment, we become different things. Some of us live as the seed, always looking for a place to be planted, searching for light, for roots, for belonging. We carry potential the world can't see yet, and we wait, sometimes for years, until the ground is ready or we are. Some of us live as a storm, restless, disruptive. We tear through what no longer serves, breaking things open so truth can finally breathe. We're not here to destroy. We're here to stir the soil, to wake the sky, to call something new into motion. Some of us live as a shovel, heavy in the hand, covered in the past, but steady. We do the work no one claps for, breaking ground, pulling roots, clearing space. We make way for what comes next, even if we never see it bloom. And then there are the trees, the ones who've already grown through it, who've weathered the storms, who were once seeds and now offer shade, fruit, shelter, and a place for others to rest. The tree doesn't chase becoming, it simply is. Rooted, reaching, still growing, but no longer searching. Not everyone gets to be the tree, but maybe that's not the goal. Maybe we rotate through them all, depending on the season. Because in the end, whether you're the seed, the storm, the shovel, or the tree, you're part of something bigger. Part of the story that came before, and the one that's still being written after you're gone. And the more I sat with that, the more I realized this isn't new. We're not the first ones to leave a mark. I had already felt their presence in the soil, but now I saw them differently. Not as a myth, not as a metaphor, but as a memory, as legacy. They ruled the earth for 150 million years. Continents shifted beneath their feet. They lived through extinction, scarcity, isolation, and they endured. Without them, the earth wouldn't be what it is today. The soil, the trees, the atmosphere, even our ability to exist came from the space they created when they were gone. They didn't build anything we could keep, didn't write anything down, but they gave everything, including their absence, to the future. That's not just power, that's purpose. I hold on to that. When the weight hits, when the fog rolls in, when the pain feels like it's too much to bear, I remind myself, this isn't my whole story. It's a chapter, a tilling, a wildfire, preparing me for what's next to grow. I'm evolving in layers, in seasons, in fire, in soil, in silence. Growth doesn't always look like stretching. Sometimes it looks like waiting. Sometimes it looks like pain. Sometimes it looks like being erased, so something inside you can start over. And that's where I am today. On fire, waiting, in pain. Watching everything I thought was solid, everything I thought was me, slowly being erased. But in that erasing, I'm also starting to find something else. Peace, silence, and maybe, finally, me. And as I clear all this, as I burn through what no longer serves, I'm not just doing it for myself. I'm doing it so she doesn't have to inherit the wreckage, so she's not buried under the weight of what I've never dealt with, so her roots can grow freely instead of having to untangle mine first. So remember, we're all going through our own extinction events, some big, some quiet, some slow as erosion. But if the dinosaurs taught us anything, it's that what you leave behind affects the next version of life. So if you're in a moment that feels like the end, don't run from it just yet. Let it reshape you. Let it till your soil, so what's truly meant for you has room to grow. This is I Drink My Coffee Black and My Whiskey Neat, where we don't shout, we pour. And this morning, we poured something ancient. Until next time, keep clearing, keep listening, keep planting.